This is Ed Driscoll with PJmedia.com, and we're talking with Jay Nordlinger, who writes for National Review, The New Criterion, and has a new book out from Encounter Books titled Peace, They Say, The History of the Nobel Prize, the most famous and controversial prize in the world. And Jay, thanks for stopping by.
Well, thank you. Great to be with you again, Ed.
Jay, I'm not sure if I expected to see a book on the Nobel Prize from you, given your frequent columns at National Review Online on language. Although, as you write in the book, even the word peace is freighted with a variety of unexpected connotations.
That's true. Everyone has his own idea of peace, what peace is and what peace isn't. And the Norwegian Nobel Committee has had to puzzle this out for a long time, since 1901. Peace is a very tricky subject. It's not always clear-cut.
You write that the Soviets were rather enamored of the P word, which seems especially surprising given folks like Joseph Stalin and Vladimir Lenin and their rather expansionist and not quite so peaceful nature.
They loved the word peace. They loved the idea of peace, or at least the charade of peace. People in the West would call themselves the freedom-loving nations. And the Soviets said, well, we and our bloc are the peace-loving nations. They named their space station Mir, which means peace, also world. They gave peace prizes themselves. They sponsored a front group called the World Peace Council. They were very big on peace. And by peace they meant the absence of war, of course. And by peace they meant no resistance, no objection, no dissent. They meant absolute submission to the party and state.
When you put it that way, it sounds a bit like the 21st century argument over whether or not Islam equals peace or Islam equals submission.
There's a little of that involved. There's a religion and there's an ideology, and then there's ideological religion. But yes, I see what you mean.
Let's talk a little bit about the Nobel Prize itself. How was it originally created?
Alfred Nobel willed 5 prizes. He wrote a will in the mid-1890s. His prizes were for, let's see in his order, physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, as he put it, literature, and peace. Is that 5? I hope so. There was no economics prize. That was added way later, at the end of the 1960s, by the Central Bank of Sweden. It's not an original or genuine Nobel Prize. It's an add-on. In any case, Nobel was a brilliant man, a chemical engineer, an inventor, an entrepreneur, and he amassed a vast fortune. But he had no family, and he decided to leave most of his estate to these prizes. And at that time, now it's pretty common to leave your money to some public or philanthropic cause, but at that time it was very rare. And his will, when it was unveiled, made news all around the world.
Now, Nobel was the inventor of dynamite. Is that true, or is that a myth?
He was. He had some 355 patents. His most famous invention is dynamite, not the most important one, but definitely the most famous. And it's been said for a very long time that he willed his prize for peace out of guilt over this invention. And it's not true. We're pretty certain it's not true. He was very proud of his inventions in the area of explosives. He thought they did a lot of good. They built what today we call infrastructure. He was also a great believer in deterrence, maybe an over-believer in deterrence, the power of terrible weapons to deter or even abolish war. But it's not easy to know exactly what's in a man's head and heart. But from what we know, Nobel felt no guilt over this and did not establish the Peace Prize in an effort to atone.
For most of the 20th century, the Nobel Prize had a rather benign image, though in the last 10 years or so, it's become obvious how politicized the award is. What caused that shift?
The prize has always been political, and it's always been controversial right from the beginning, 1901. But it seemed to go into overdrive in the 1980s during the Reagan years. That persisted in the 90s and was really evident in the 2000s, the time of George W. Bush. In fact, you could argue that there were 5 Nobel Peace Prizes given against George W. Bush or in reaction to him. But the prize has always been fairly political. The committee is composed of 5 Norwegians. They tend to be social democrats, Scandinavian-style social democrats. And so the choices reflect that, the philosophical and you might say attitudinal nature of the committee.
I was surprised to read in your book that Nancy Reagan thought President Reagan desired the award, though again, I may be thinking of the Nobel Prize's current reputation and projecting backwards. But
Well, I think she wanted it for him. A lot of people wanted it for him. But the Nobel Committee was in no mood to give it to him, and they did give it to Mikhail Gorbachev in 1990. A lot of people like us, Ed, thought that Reagan should have shared the prize. A lot of people thought Pope John Paul II as well, but Gorbachev got it alone.
well, beyond Gorbachev, let's talk about three of the most unexpected, as Bloomberg.com would say, the unexpectedly would say
Okay.
the winners of the award. Yasser
Sure.
Arafat, Al Gore, and Barack Obama, the latter seemingly about 5 minutes after he took office. In each case, what were the prize givers thinking?
Well, the prize to Arafat's a little bit murky. That was in 1994. We have to remember that he didn't win it by himself. He won it in concert with two Israeli statesmen, the prime minister and the foreign minister, Rabin and Peres. And they were happy, or at least willing, to appear in Oslo with Arafat to share the prize. And in fact, Peres went so far as to say in his Nobel lecture that Arafat's share in the prize was fitting. So that's a complicated prize. A member of the committee did resign in disgust at a third of the prize to Arafat. But it was shared by the Israeli prime minister and foreign minister. Al Gore, global warming was all the rage in 2007 when that award was given. Global warming was maybe at its apex. I mean the movement having to do with global warming, and they've been rocked by scandals since the global warming movement, you might say. But the Nobel Committee has often gone far afield, far away from Alfred Nobel's original idea of peace, the criteria for his Peace Prize. And global warming was, no pun intended, the hot ticket at that time. Obama, I think they mainly wanted to bless a new day. They so hated George W. Bush. He was their nightmare president. And Barack Obama was their dream president, the committee's dream president. And I think I say in my book that if the Nobel Committee could design an American president from scratch, he would be a lot like Barack Obama. He is almost one of them, a fellow social democrat.
Jay, with all of that as background, what do you estimate is the future for the Nobel Prize?
Well, I call it the most famous and controversial prize in the world. I think it's clearly the most controversial. Whether it's the most famous, that may be subject to debate. Could be the Oscar. Oddly enough, one man in 1 year, 2007, won both awards, both the Peace Prize and the Oscar, and that was Al Gore. And so I have every reason to expect that the Nobel Peace Prize will continue prestigious, important, controversial, maddening, gladdening. We say in golf, every shot pleases someone, and every Nobel Prize selection pleases someone and disgusts someone else.
In the few minutes we have left, let's talk a little bit about language outside of the P word. What do you make of the president's re-election efforts this year and his flailing about on all sorts of issues, accusing the GOP of just about every nefarious purpose, all the way to social Darwinism? Jay, I missed the memo. When did the clock get reset to 1932?
Well, Obama also says that our view of the world is you're on your own.
Oh, good. Please. I'd love to be.
Yeah. Look, these campaigns, they almost never change. The Democratic nominee runs as a good, moderate, sensible, pragmatic person and paints the Republican nominee as Attila the Hun, as an extremist who will throw your babies and great-grandparents into the snow. It has been this way forever, it seems. John Kerry was like this. Al Gore was like this. Bill Clinton was like this. It simply never fails. These campaigns are a little bit boring because they're so predictable. In 2008, Obama ran as a centrist, almost a Dick Lugar-style Republican, and he has governed very differently. But he will revert to that campaign mode in this year. So, as I have to rub my eyes a little, or stifle a yawn, in that this always happens. And Republicans, if they're not prepared for it, it's their own fault, because it's no surprise.
At the risk of getting into a topic that impacts directly on National Review at the moment, in general, how's America's frank conversation on race going?
Badly. Very badly. Always has, or long has, I should say. Obama was supposed to work an improvement. I'm not sure he has. I'm not sure that bitterness and division and grievance haven't increased. And I'll tell you this, if Obama loses his bid for re-election, it'll be very, very bad. There will be many noses out of joint. Thomas Sowell thinks there may well be rioting in the streets. I said, come on, you're kidding. You don't mean that, do you? And he said, well, sure. He said, the Jesse Jacksons and Al Sharptons of the world, are they going to just sit back and say, that's the way the cookie crumbles in a democracy, win some, lose some? I don't know. I don't know. I have a bad feeling about it. I have a feeling that if the race is tight in mid-October, from the Democratic side, it will be all race and all Mormonism all the time, right up through that Tuesday.
Well, speaking of peace, is there any chance that we're going to see peace in the culture wars in our lifetimes?
Not while abortion is unresolved. That is maybe the great sore in American life, not dissimilar to slavery, although you can overplay that. And something, I don't see any real, what you might call social peace, absent some resolution to that question.
Okay, well, on that disheartening note.
Well, sorry about that. I could tell a joke or something as a, one for the road. But thank you for your stimulating questions. I wish I could have given some cheerier answers to some of them.
No, this was great stuff. This is Ed Driscoll with PJmedia.com, and we've been talking with Jay Nordlinger, who writes for National Review, The New Criterion, and has a new book out from Encounter Books titled Peace, They Say, The History of the Nobel Prize, the most famous and controversial prize in the world. It's available from Amazon.com and your local bookseller, if you still have a local bookseller.
Yeah. Fewer and farther between, so true.
And Jay, thanks once again for stopping by.
Well, keep up your good work, Ed. It's important, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.